Hey, welcome to episode 150 of Decentralized Revolution, the Mises Caucus podcast. I'm your co host tonight, Nate Thurston. Aaron was not able to make it, but we do have Samantha Baker co hosting, the vice chair, LPTN, state organizer for the Mises Caucus. Sam, thank you for being here to help me out tonight. I appreciate it.
My pleasure. I'm co-hosting the co-host, so this is exciting.
I love it. We're joined tonight by Tennessee State Representative Monty Fritts, who is running for governor in the great state of Tennessee. Monty, thank you for being here with us.
Hey, I appreciate you all having me on tonight. I'm outside at the moment. We've just finished a meeting up in Tipton County, so if there's a little road noise, I apologize.
That's okay. No problem at all. So for those of our listeners and people watching right now who might not know anything about you, would you mind giving us a little bit of your backstory?
Sure. Monty Fritts, Roane County, Tennessee. I have been a state rep now for about 3 years. I am a candidate for governor. I'm applying to 7 million people, which is quite a lengthy process to get hired as the next governor of the state of Tennessee. I'm married for 42 years, almost. Have 2 sons, 3 grandsons. Kind of retired. I spent a career in nuclear manufacturing and formerly a soldier. Re-enlisted in 2003, spent just about a year and a half on active duty. We were in Operation Iraqi Freedom. I was the NCOIC for a PSD and security, PSD and convoy security team there. I like to read. I like to be left alone. But I'm enjoying this journey running for governor. I think it's going to be a beautiful thing. I think we're going to win.
Well, I wanted to just a little bit further backstory and information for people listening. I was looking earlier, and the Freedom Index has you a really high rating, by the way. It's got you second in Tennessee. But how did you get there? I want to know a little bit about your philosophy on government.
Yeah, I think I'm a constitutional absolutist. And so I was fortunate to score 100 this year. I had 92, I think, a couple of years ago. So I've got a 94 average. I've probably got the highest multi-year average in the General Assembly. And, I don't know that I'm 100 on anything, to be honest with you. But I appreciate the score. I think what concerns me most is that assessment for the Freedom Index is looking at constitutional adherence and small government principles. And so we have lots of people who claim to be Republican that are scoring 50 and 60 on those assessments. And that concerns me, that there's such a disregard for the Constitution and its absolute authority over government that people would accept those scores.
Absolutely. Sam, anytime you want to come in with I know you got some stuff, you got a whole notepad there of great things written down. Yeah. So I don't want to take up all the time.
Cool clipboard over here.
Well, can I just one other quick thing? I'm not really running against anyone. I am running against an establishment that's embedded with a Nashville establishment that doesn't think they work for you, the Tennesseans, and don't think that they fall under the authority of the Constitution. And when you see that same Freedom Index that you referenced, when you look at the scores of some of the other candidates, they're scoring in the 60s. And I think if you look at Senator Blackburn, you'll find that she had years she scored in the 40s. I think we need less DC in Nashville. And when you look at an out of control national debt that the senator has been a part of since, I think, 2003, seeing the national debt since 2003, if I've got my numbers correctly, and I think I do, go from $6.8 trillion to about $55.5 trillion at the end of 2024. That's problematic for me. I think that our budget is out of control, our budget requests. We do a balanced budget in Tennessee, but our budget has grown in 6 years by 59% in the state of Tennessee. That's my first priority as governor, is to stop budgeting matters that are not within the bounds of the Constitution. And I think we're doing lots of that now in Nashville, and I think we've got to stop it. I think that every one of those dollars that we spend in that 59% budget growth in 6 years are dollars that we've taken from y'all, and they're dollars that are depriving you of liberty. And so I am determined to stop that.
Yeah, it's definitely different to hear a candidate with that at like the budget as their kind of their cornerstone issue. Now, clearly that's like a main issue, but some would say that you kind of arrived to the party late. Like, we knew Marsha was going to go. We knew, we had Johnny Rose coming up, and that's all well and good. And then, I'm talking to Todd Warner, and he's like, hold on, there might be another one. And I had no idea. So was it just the budget, or what other issues kind of made you, what, this is enough, I have to run?
So it is much more than the budget. I do think the budget's the cornerstone. That's the foundation, because I think that overtaxation is the first and most effective form of bondage. And so it becomes a tyrannical approach when the establishment in Nashville thinks they can continue to take your tax dollars and spend them on things that are not the function of government, corporate welfare items. I think that should concern us all. Secondly, I think that we have a Nashville establishment that needs to be recalibrated, that doesn't think they work under the authority of the Tennessee or U.S. Constitution, and doesn't think they work for you. Our Tennessee Republican Party guiding principles clearly outlines that our rights come from Almighty God. The same Almighty God is mentioned in Article 1, Section 3 of our Tennessee Constitution, and that they're inviolate. We have government employees, state of Tennessee employees, that actively patrol the halls of the Cordell Hall building, working against your rights, trying to amend and alter legislation as it moves through the process. I offer that is not a constitutional approach. The governor gets to look at the legislation once it hits his or her desk. He can then sign it into law, veto it, give an explanation of why, or let it lay for 10 days minus Sunday, and it'll become law. And so to have these folks working aggressively against your rights is again, a leading indicator for me that they don't think that they work for you. And we need to recalibrate that. How do you do that? And lots of politicians give you, we need to do this, but they don't have any idea how. We're going to be the most conservative this side or the other, and there's no other details to it. But I think all those people that are legislative directors and liaisons today need to be reassigned to the governor's helpline, so that the people of Tennessee understand that their governor is responsive to them, that either by email or website or phone call, they get answers and help with their problems from the governor of the state of Tennessee, because the governor works for the 7 million people of this state, the citizens. And I think that those commissioners of those departments should, on a monthly basis, apprise the governor of the things that are going well and the things that need to be approved based on, partially on the input that they're getting from that governor's helpline that comes in. And I think just that helps to recalibrate the approach of government in Tennessee, to understand that, again, government works under the authority of the Constitution at all levels, and that government works at the will of the people. Next, I would offer you that every commissioner and every senior employee needs to pass a constitutional test to be able to hold those jobs. Because I think today that many of them don't know what's in the Tennessee Constitution, and I don't know how they can exercise the authorities they've been given them if they don't understand the boundaries from which they exercise those authorities. So I think those are the first couple of things that we're going to do there. I think other things on the list for me, all created in the image of Almighty God, but those folks that come into the state of Tennessee and who are illegally in these United States, we citizens do not owe them free health care, and we do not owe their children an education. And it is time that we challenge Plyler versus DOE in Tennessee. We tried to do that with legislation this past year. It died in the Senate. But it would have required everyone registering their kid for school in public schools this year to bring documentation, birth certificate, DD 214, etc., to prove that that child is eligible to be educated in Tennessee public school. And if they can't provide that, to go ahead and pay the TISA amount up front. I know to many folks, to many of your listeners, that's going to seem harsh. But again, my oath in this office, my oath as governor will be the same to the Constitution of this state, these United States, and to work for the people of Tennessee, the citizens. And I think that's important. I think elections, I think we are secure in elections now, better than most states, but I think we need to adopt that continuous improvement that our founding fathers wrote of when they said, in order to form a more perfect union. Now, that goes into lots of things, but you know, our founders and framers believed that we had to stay ahead of things. And in a time of cybercrime, and in a time when our president that we just elected is calling for perhaps the use of paper ballots and one-day election rather than election season, and better ID for elections, we should be embracing those concepts in the state of Tennessee. And we should, if there is a bully pulpit for the governor, he should be exercising that. And we haven't been. And I think that's tremendously important. I'll pause. I can the entire list, but
no,
that's
on and on. Yeah,
that's great. I'm really glad we got to go down through some of that list. You know, as I'm hearing some of these things, I'll admit to you, I've always thought that Tennessee just had a very, very conservative, small government, especially, I guess it still is compared to a lot of states. But some of these things I hear, I'm surprised about. And like a lot of people, I pay a lot more attention to national politics than I do to local and state politics, even though I talk about politics every day. And I keep saying I'm going to do better. I don't. And so I wanted to ask you, what was that?
I said, no matter how hard I try,
I know. I try so hard to pay more attention to these things, and I just don't. And so people listening right now, they might be surprised to hear, like, wow, with these people in Tennessee talking about this big Tennessee government, and we have 59% budget growth and all that. And then I got to something else that honestly I didn't know about. I wanted you to fill me in on Hughes v. Lee. That is one that, once again, I'm sad and maybe a little bit embarrassed to admit I didn't know anything about, but I'll do that right here in front of you guys and tell you that I didn't know anything about it. So why don't you fill everyone in if you don't mind?
Be happy to. So I am an absolutist when it comes to our Bill of Rights. Again, our Tennessee Republican Party guiding principles asserts that. Our guiding principles in Tennessee are much better than the national platform. The national platform has been watered down on life by some of those career politicians in D.C. Our guiding principles in Tennessee is not. If indeed that our rights have been given us by God, and I assert that is the case, then government does not have the authority within our Constitution or before God to be able to just strip those rights arbitrarily away. As a matter of fact, our Tennessee Constitution that says that it is absurd and slavish, and I'm paraphrasing, but to bow to arbitrary power. And we should not do that. So Hughes v. Lee, 154-year-old words in code that say intent to go armed. And it was added, as I'm told, into the Tennessee law, again, 154 years ago, to prevent black folks from being able to defend themselves. So a group of West Tennesseans brought a suit, Gun Owners of America, Hughes v. Lee, is how we get to that. And they sued about that language. And they sued the Governor Lee, the Attorney General's Committee, and Jeff Long in the Department of Safety as enforcement arms of this law that they claim was unconstitutional. So a Chancery Court, 3-judge Chancery Court, West Tennessee District, ruled that those words are unconstitutional. Let me tell you what those words do in Tennessee law. So we don't have constitutional carry today in Tennessee. Many people will say that we do. Many of the politicians who don't read their Constitution nor read the law will tell you that. We do not have constitutional carry. In America, we think, we should think, that we are innocent until proven guilty.
Guilty.
But in Tennessee firearms law, that intent to go armed makes me guilty until I can defend my innocence. And so I can defend my innocence with the sidearm that I'm wearing now by saying I am either open carrying, because that is a law to defend against the intent to go armed, or by having a concealed carry permit. Well, that's upside down constitutionally and from an American idealism of innocent until proven guilty. So you would think that when this court comes back and says this is unconstitutional, that there would be a celebration in Nashville. We have removed or are removing Jim Crow law. That everybody should celebrate that. I talked to high school classes about this, and the high school classes say, yeah, we should be happy to remove Jim Crow code language from Tennessee law books. Yet our governor and our attorney general decide that they're not happy with that. They want to perpetuate this continued infringement upon your right to keep and bear arms. And so they appeal the decision. And so they're going to spend more of your money and my money and Samantha's money to try to continue to infringe and impose upon your rights of self-protection. And let me offer just this last thought with this long answer. I think that's a constitutionally apostate position. They should be ashamed of themselves. They should repent before Almighty God, because I think that right comes from God. And it is not only constitutionally wrong, it is a sin. I call for them to repent. It's sinful for them to do this.
But they all have conservative on their website, so they can't be,
Yeah. Well, and here's the other thing I would offer you. So we're going to send National Guardsmen to Memphis. Okay, I think it is a criminal rebellion or it's not. Based on the people I'm talking to, it is. But we talk about things that we can do to make Memphians more safe. The first thing we can do is stop intimidating the lawful citizen so that they won't defend themselves. We have made a posture in the state of Tennessee with weak leaders, weak men in positions of leadership, that they influence to disarm. And that benefits the predatory spirit of the criminal. So that predator feels more empowered. And in doing so, we make all of Tennessee, not just Memphis, not just Knoxville or Nashville, all of Tennessee less safe. And I would hope that these men would come to the realization that what they are doing is putting Tennesseans at greater jeopardy for criminals. But they don't seem to understand that. I'll offer you one other thought on that. I understand it's been confirmed that we are going to send National Guardsmen. I'm a former Tennessee Army National Guardsman. We're going to send them to help with the criminal rebellion in Memphis. And I'm good with that. If it's a rebellion, I'm good. We must restore law and order, right? But I understand that we're going to send them unarmed. Now, apparently that's been reported on from a couple sources.
What's the point?
As a soldier, if that's true, I hope it's not, because this might be the most foolish thing to come out of the Lee administration. But if we're going to send Tennessee Guardsmen, Army or Air Guardsmen, to Memphis to put down a criminal rebellion, and we're going to send them unarmed, we are so disrespecting every one of those servicemen and women. We're saying to them, we don't trust you to do the job. And we're saying to their families, we don't care about the safety of your loved one that we're sending into what we call a quote-unquote criminal rebellion. There is a bias in Nashville amongst those men, males, that go about with armed security about them. They have people that follow them everywhere they go to provide them protection, yet they don't care if you have it, so they'll keep that Jim Crow law on the books. They don't care if that Tennessee Army National Guardsman who's being pulled away from his or her job and his or her family to go and help with this, what may be a dire situation in Memphis, they don't care that they're unarmed, so long as they're surrounded by an armed detail to protect them. I can think of nothing more hypocritical and cowardly than that. I hope that I will hear from the governor's office that it is not true, that we're not disarming our guardsmen to send them to Memphis. I hope that's the case, because if what's being reported is true, it's one of the most cowardly and stupid things I can possibly imagine. And it indicates an anti-gun bias, and it fully explains why they would pursue this appeal of Hughes v. Lee, that there's an elitist mentality in Nashville, Tennessee, that establishment I'm running against, that says we're more important than you average Tennesseans, and that God has blessed us and anointed us into these positions, and you really don't matter. We're going to do what we want to do. And that's a sad, sad reality, but I think that's the case.
Not only that, if that is the case, to me, it signals that they don't take the problem seriously, like they're going to send them there, but they don't think they need to be armed. That would seem like if you're going to fight against a criminal rebellion, then you would send people armed. So maybe you're just going to pose for cameras. I'm not really sure. Just speculating there. But we're talking about the National Guard right now, Sam, and
Yeah.
I wanted to I wanted to make sure you got your question in.
No, everything he said so far really falls right in line. And no one would know the duty of the National Guard more than yourself, Representative Fritts. Like, you've been in the Guard. A couple days before you announced you're running for governor, you vehemently said that you support Defend the Guard legislation. Now, we've had co-sponsors back out on us before. We've had all kinds of backroom meetings with generals that I'm battling right now. Now, say you win, and we're doing everything we can to help you there. Will you still support Defend the Guard legislation when you get into government?
Absolutely. And I'll continue to support and defend that Constitution that I swore an oath to, that says that we don't go to war without a declaration of war. Those intellectually lazy and weak people in Congress that have spent decades there and enriched themselves, man up or woman up, if that's the case, and do your duty before we're going to send months upon months. I fully support President Trump or President whomever, President Smith, President Bubba, to defend our nation against immediate threats. But that is much different than putting boots on the ground for months and months with not only our guardsmen in Tennessee, but even our active duty soldiers without a declaration of war. It is, again, I've used this phrase twice, it is a constitutionally apostate approach to do that. And, I would call upon those in Congress. Unfortunately, most of them haven't worn a uniform. I'm thinking, do we have anybody now that Mark Green is out of the congressional delegation in Tennessee? Do we have any veterans? I think the answer is no. I think that we haven't had a veteran in the governor's office in Tennessee in some time. And so I think it's probably likely that we would develop these views of, well, that's them. We send those kinds of people off to fight our wars. We send those kinds of people off to do things that, and we'll go tell them bye. We'll stand at a parade to make ourselves feel good about it. But we never had the gumption to go raise our hand and put the uniform on. I know that's hard. And I'm not trying to just be mean, but these people need to be drawn to a point of repentance, because what they are doing is morally apostate. It's not just constitutionally wrong, it's morally apostate. And so we have to put the right word on that, the right phrase, and I think they need to repent.
Sam, correct me if I'm wrong. I believe this will be the only candidate for governor in Tennessee that will make those statements about Defend the Guard. Am I correct on that?
That is correct. Thus far, you go to these candidates' websites. We're the conservative choice. We're this, we're that, and I don't want to talk bad about any other human being out there. I mean, I do, but I'm not going to. No, but it's this is a very black and white issue to me. I mean, as Mr. Fritts here, I can read the Constitution quite clearly, and this legislation is the shortest one-page, front and back, point blank, stand next to the Constitution about how we can send these troops overseas or not, and that's it. And for for them to twist it and make up excuses about federal funding that aren't even true, and use that as a reason to send our best, strongest, youngest family men overseas without any due process in terms of what that assignment is. We don't know if it's going to be 8 weeks or 8 months, and we don't even, is it even a combat zone? Is it just training? And they try to twist everything, and it's really quite simple. And I think Monty nailed it.
Well, let's say this too, because this is important. The volunteer, the true volunteer, I am a true volunteer. The true volunteer runs into the dust. They run into the fray. And so we should absolutely respect those servicemen and women who, when the orders are cut, they go. They don't offer excuses. They don't try to get out. They go.
Absolutely.
But I got to tell you, now that I'm not wearing the uniform anymore, but I'm in a political office, it is incumbent upon me to stand up for them. And so that's what I'm trying to do. There becomes that doctrine of lesser magistrates requirement that we speak up and we stop just doing that. And even if, Samantha, even if it is true that we're going to lose money in Tennessee, and perhaps some rogue element of the Department of Defense, I've not met that rogue element yet, by the way, but that rogue element doesn't send us another M1 tank or doesn't send us a new refueler, and we maintain fidelity with the Constitution, we have had a win. And so if anyone thinks that the dollar is more important than fidelity to the Constitution, they are unfit to wear the uniform and they're unfit to serve in the office. It is that simple.
Absolutely agree. Absolutely. I've got some other, after leaving that one, talking about some of these other things, might not be quite as fun, but I do have some other platform questions for you to get some of your takes on some of these things that you didn't get through in your list earlier. But some things that people listening right now might care about. And in Tennessee, one of the things we have to talk about are school vouchers. Now, it might be people that disagree on that with you or with someone else, but I want to get your take on that.
Well, I voted against it primarily, the school voucher thing. It was a scam. It was an immoral timing to time this special session in with whether or not we help the folks in Upper East Tennessee. I've got to believe there are people who don't sleep well today because they did something so degrading, and they did it on purpose. But aside from that, aside from the timing and how reprehensible that was, Article 11, Section 12 is pretty clear to me. The first sentence talks about the inherent value of education, Tennessee Constitution, Article 11, Section 12. The third sentence talks about the General Assembly may, and it gives flexibility with colleges and universities. But that second sentence is what I think is a specific and restrictive statement. It says the General Assembly shall provide for the maintenance, support, and eligibility standards for a system of free public schools. And so I think that precludes us from spending public funds on private education in Tennessee. I think, and as I've thought about this more, I think it also puts a greater requirement on the General Assembly to make sure that we fund that base education. I'm not sure we're doing that in our current 70-30 approach, because right now the General Assembly is pushing 30% of the cost for educating in our public schools back onto the counties. And usually that's a 50, 60, or 70% of the local budget goes to education. I think when you read in a verbatim compliance manner, that second sentence, we may need to be doing more than what we're doing from Nashville. And perhaps if we cut out some of that corporate welfare, there'd be money to make sure that we can assume some of those costs. Fiscal irresponsibility. So the TISA formula has $7,200, $7,300 that comes from the state of Tennessee per student, per head count student, to the counties. And so there was a market driver in that. I actually like the idea that the dollar follows the child in the concept of the market, because God gave the child to the parent to decide, right? I like that idea. But constitutionally, no matter how much I like that idea, I can't support it with the way the Constitution's written. What we did with that law is we messed up the fiscal responsibility of it. Now, for those few people that pulled their children out of a public school and sent them to private school, both $7,200 follows the child to the new private school, and $7,200 stays in the school that the child left. So you, the taxpayer, are paying $14,400 for that child to educate them, plus whatever the local cost would have been.
And I just want to point out that that's not a market. If I decide to go to Burger King, they don't also give McDonald's money at the same time. Like I get to choose where I'm going. They don't both get money.
Yeah, so I will tell you, it's part of the slippery slope of socialism that I see in Nashville. And unfortunately, there are a lot of entitled people, and there's me 20,000 people. Some of them are going to hate me for this. But if you all hire me as governor, I'm going to suspend the vouchers because I do think they're unconstitutional. And that is not that's not a criticism of the people that have gotten the money. It is a criticism of the bureaucracy that we've created and the enlargement of the bureaucracy in Nashville. I asked the commissioner in the spring hearings when I voted against this the first time, was government going to grow as a result of this voucher program, which changed from voucher, by the way, to freedom scholarships over the summer because it sounded better. I will tell you, folks in East Tennessee, in Roane County and Loudoun County, we were already free. We didn't need to be liberated for that decision making.
And wasn't it true they used phrasing like, if you support school choice, you support vouchers, which was also a misnomer. There was already school choice.
Yeah, so there's a group of people who are really Marxist in their leanings, that they want to usurp more power over you by having more control over you by feeding you a couple dollars. And those people, unfortunately, there's some with an R next to their name and some with a D next to their name. And that Marxist ideology of making government bigger, we did that with this voucher scam. As a matter of fact, I think that we have someone who introduced herself in a recent committee as the Deputy Commissioner of Choice. And so not only did we pick a staff of people to decide who gets this, but we set up apparently a deputy commissioner. We grew government. It's against every Republican principle. Government got bigger. They got more control over the parents, over the private schools. And we didn't do anything, I think, we did not do anything healthy for this market. I ask people this question often, and there's a few dissenting opinions on it. It was overwhelmingly unpopular where I live, in the district I represent. I suspect it was in most of the state. I have learned in politics that the polls will tell you whatever you want to hear if you pay them enough. And I don't know if that's a poll or a propaganda. I guess you can decide which way you want to define that. But there was moving those dollars and several incentives to get those votes, to get this thing pushed through. People in Upper East Tennessee that said that they felt pressure to vote for this, else their home counties wasn't going to get any help. I think that was probably one of the three lowest points. The Hughes v. Lee and the sending the guard to that whole combined thing. That's probably the low point of the Lee administration. And it surprises me that no one has the situational awareness to understand that. But I think the school vouchers were right up there with Executive Order 83 and 84 that were given back during COVID as just low points. And I would hope that Governor Lee would take whoever's giving him that advice and taking him down the wrong roads, and he should fire them immediately. I can promise you I will.
Sam, what do you got one? Or I got plenty of policies here to ask about, so I don't want to.
Yeah, I did want to check over in the comments. I think they've been bubbling up a little bit, see if there's any questions.
Let me see here. Let's see. In terms of leadership style, do you view yourself with top-down style, as we've seen under Lee, or an alternate approach?
Yeah, I don't think Governor Lee has been a top-down leader. I'm not sure how to describe that. I think that the true leader is a servant leader. And I think that the servant leader has to understand what is important to the people he or she leads. And I think he has to understand what causes them pain and what brings them joy. And I think that part of the reason that I want to restore Tennessee back to average Tennesseans is because of our 7 million people, there's probably the majority of them that feel like government doesn't work for them. And it goes back to my second bullet that we talked about, recalibrating government. I think that there are just so many folks that don't feel like they have a voice in Nashville government. Even in the legislative process, we will have a group of Republicans write us and say, do not pass this intent to go voucher bill. So we have the intent to go armed and the intent to go, not vouchered, intent to go caucused bill. And we still vote it through. There's just an absolute, within the Nashville establishment, we don't really have to care about what's important to you. We're going to do what we want to and convince you that we did the right thing, and maybe even propagandize enough data to make you feel like we've done the right thing. I think that's a sad place to be. And so
it's definitely sad. Just a couple more things with the, I mean, as a libertarian, we even have, like, I'm a Ron Paul libertarian, and there's other types of libertarians. And clearly within the Republican Party, there's a true constitutional side to the party. And then those who kind of just do what the money is telling them to do. I noticed there was a bill, and I want to thank you for voting against it. It was House Bill 1316 around the digital driver's licenses. So you voted against that. I saw that as a baby step toward what the UK has done in terms of getting toward digital ID completely, tracking everything in terms of your bank and your ID and how you work. So I saw that as a baby step toward that. Do you see that there's an approach to keep those bills from escalating here in Tennessee?
I think, unfortunately, there are groups of well-funded lobbies that will do several things. They will tell many of the people how to vote and sponsor things either through the governor's office in one of what is referred to as an administration bill that many, not all of my colleagues certainly, but many feel like they just have to vote for because it's the governor's legislation. Well, first of all, the governor doesn't really constitutionally get to sponsor legislation. And some of those globalist views on how the world should be, they're secular humanists in their worldview, start to creep in and start to incentivize your decision making. That's much of what the school voucher thing was. It wasn't school choice. We already have that. Trump's approach of you perhaps not sending your tax dollars in and you keeping that money is a little bit different than sending it through the washing machine in Nashville or DC and allowing them to redistribute that wealth as they see fit. That is the classic model of socialism. And we've done the same thing with the farmland preservation bill. We did the same thing with $60 million to 0% construction loans on new homes. And a bureaucrat will decide who gets that and who doesn't. We should do things for all Tennesseans, not just select sets of Tennesseans. And we should greatly avoid having a set of bureaucrats that gets the final decision on just who gets to benefit from the collective wealth of the state and who doesn't.
Absolutely agree. I have a more broad question here, not specific policy, but we got a lot of libertarian listeners, of course, Libertarian Mises Caucus and Libertarian Party of Tennessee, and I wanted to know what your message to these Tennessee libertarians might be when they go to the ballot box and they're trying to figure out who to vote for. Like, what do you have in common with them? What do they have in common with you? What should they know about you?
Yeah, so I think the first thing is something I've already stated, that our rights come from God. I think that aligns with most libertarian views, um, that the rights come from somewhere far above government and man, and I think that's point number one. I would offer that point number two would be to have someone that works for you within the bounds of the Constitution. Again, I think that liberty loving people, I'm running on this liberty and less government approach. And liberty, by definitions, 2 Corinthians 3:17, where the Spirit of the Lord is, there's liberty. So liberty is something that has been given us by Almighty God. And we stand as free moral agents before Almighty God, civil government, and our fellow man. And we get the opportunity to choose to do the right thing or the wrong thing, to do good or to do evil. And we get the reward or bear the consequences of our choices. That is liberty. And I think that closely aligns with the libertarian worldview. I think it does. And I think that, I think we can put all kinds of labels on people. I think that we all have the same basic desires. And I think that sometimes how much thought we've given to a matter represents which label we wear. And usually that label is given to us by someone else, right? It's usually not something we adopt and say, I'm this or I'm that. It's usually someone else that gives that. So I think just that definition of liberty, and then the counter definition, the other side of that coin. If indeed where the Spirit of the Lord is, there's liberty, then if there is oppression and tyranny, if there is infringement upon your Second Amendment rights, if there is overtaxation, those things are evil. I think it's very binary. And I think that message is going to resonate with Republicans, with libertarians. And I will tell you, I hope we have a good number of Democrats who convert to becoming true Republicans. I think, I don't want to overstate.
I'm sure there's some Republicans that should just go ahead and go to Democrats too. Like I agree with the fluidity of, like, there's a lot of human, like, God-given values that we just have as human beings and we all agree on. And I think it would be really helpful if we focused on those. Don't take my money, don't hurt my family, and leave me alone. Like, it's not that complicated.
You go down my list, you'll see much of that. Keep more of your money. Recalibrate government that it works for you. Medical freedoms, parental choice in education and medical freedom. You know that over the past 5-6 years, we've seen a health department get into guiding and pressuring things that they have no constitutional business doing. None, period. And we'll correct that. I think there's a much more efficient, constitutional first, but efficient manner to run our government. And I think rather than having the corporate arm of corporate welfare distributing dollars to companies to come in and often picking and choosing those winners and losers, I think let's just establish liberty and let's get less restriction, less government, less in the way of business. And I think we won't have to put money in the palms. They'll flock to come here.
We did have a question in here from someone watching with us right now, if you don't mind. A question from John. Says, as someone in the Appalachian region, a year ago, we had a lot of issues housing people hurt by the hurricane. What would you do to stop FEMA from stopping people from building houses?
I think there's several things. That myself and the executive department, the U.S. government, and I think President Trump would probably be agreeable with these things if we just had a governor with the guts to sit down and discuss them. I think a couple things. I think for those groups that come in and become prohibitive of progress in people restoring a roof over their head, they're not welcome in Tennessee. I would also offer that those people who come in and dragged nonviolent, they said criminals. I don't think it's criminal to pray in front of an abortion clinic. I think that's our godly right, First Amendment right to do that. But those people who come in armed like military and kicked in doors and dragged Tennesseans out, I think we should arrest those people. I think they're not welcome in Tennessee. And I know that sounds radical to folks, but I'm telling you that the way we're trending now, if we don't have someone with the courage to stand up against those injustices, we're in trouble. I think that we have military members in the state of Tennessee that were forced to take COVID vaccines or jabs before they were allowed to retire. And I think just as House Joint Resolution 98, I think, that we sent to D.C., I sent to all the congressional delegation in Tennessee. I hadn't heard from any of them yet, just by the way, just for the record. But we sent it up after we passed it, and the governor signed it saying that those men and women who were harmed by the unlawful order to take a COVID injection or an anthrax injection should be taken care of by the VA. And there should be an investigation as to the command structure that made those decisions. And I find it unfortunate that we've sent that out, and I haven't gotten the first reply on it yet from the federal government. So I think standing up for those veterans is important. I think, again, I see all the indications of a Nashville establishment that is elitist in its worldview, secular humanist in their worldview, rather than creationist and servant leader worldview.
Another one here from someone watching. We've got what's your position on nullification, states' rights, things like that?
Yeah, so a couple things. First, we talked about this a little bit. The Ninth Amendment makes it clear that just because we hadn't written it down doesn't mean it's not a God-given right, to Samantha's point. And that 10th Amendment makes it clear that those powers not delegated to specifically delegated to the federal government fall upon the states. And we've not embraced that. We must embrace it. I think we have the authority to say no now. We've not had someone with the strength to do that. I was supportive of Representative Halsey's nullification bill. He carried that with Janice Boland, I think. I'm supportive of it. I think it's a shame that we need a process. I think it's a shame that we don't have an executive department and an attorney general that will bring action against the federal government when the rights of Tennesseans, civil rights of Tennesseans, are violated.
Love to hear that. Let's see. We
won't keep you too long. I know you've been going all day.
About 5 more minutes, and we're going.
You got it.
How do you feel about another question here? I'm just going to people that are asking us questions right now. They want to know, some good Tennessee people in here. How do you feel about abolishing the grocery tax for immediate relief for Tennesseans?
So, I tried to do that. Tried to start doing that a couple of years ago with a bill, and it targeted. It was a good measured approach because I think we shouldn't break things. I think we should correct them. I want to get rid of the entire 4% state grocery sales tax. Our first approach was to start with those WIC qualified items, not just for the WIC recipient, that's already taken care of, but we started with that group of foods, and because the grocery stores are already calibrated to understand what those are. So I want to make that state sales tax free for every Tennessean, those milks and breads and eggs and cheeses and juices and all those kinds of things. It had a $146 million fiscal note. We couldn't get it. It fell behind the budget. We're going to run that very same bill this year. Again, I think it's a good measured step toward actually removing that grocery tax. And you can do it one chop at the tree at a time. You're going to hear lots of people that will offer, well, we're going to remove the grocery tax and we're going to put more tax on automobiles and more tax on companies. Well, the consumer's just going to bear that load either way. We need to get rid of, repeal that tax, and that's what I'm trying to do. And you'll see that again this year.
All right, so we got a couple minutes left here. Sam, you see anything else in here that we need to get to?
Let me talk about property tax.
Well, yeah.
We'd love to hear about that.
That's an important thing for Tennesseans. We have a bill coming that will fix your property value, real property value for your residences at the 2020 value or what you've paid since. And we're trying to do that because the Constitution says that the local governments can apply a property tax to raise revenue. We have to raise revenue somewhere, right, for the common functions of government. But right now we're taxing against unrealized capital gains. And so my bill, I think, ends that unrealized capital gains, and it puts it at the value you paid for it, or 2020. It gives us a starting point there. The second thing it does is it prevents the government from evicting a Tennessee citizen, a U.S. citizen, from their property because they were delinquent in property taxes. And doesn't prevent the whole estate closure and everything. And, if I pass away, when I pass away, that my estate would be settled, but it would prevent me from being evicted from my house by the government.
That's so important. There's so
amazing.
many people, not just in our state, but everywhere, that have owned their homes outright, no mortgage, 20, 30 years, and they can lose their home.
Yep.
That's not okay.
I think we've got to do it. Every Tennessean should expect to keep more of their money. Every Tennessean should expect government to work for them. Every Tennessean should expect to be in charge of their healthcare decisions, their children's healthcare decisions, and their education decisions. And they don't need to be incentivized by $7,000 to get them to make the correct decision. That's not freedom. That's socialism. And every Tennessean should feel confident in the possession of their home, that they're not going to be bounced out on the street to have it sold on the courthouse blocks. I think that's a Tennessee value. I'm sorry that it's taken me this long to come to it, but we've got it drafted up. It'll hopefully be filed soon. We're certainly going to charge that hill.
Love it. Thank you so much for coming. And we want to do, our due diligence. Where can let's get you some funding. Let's get your website out there. Where can people find you?
Fritts, Fritts, the number 4, TN.com, FrittsForTN.com. You go to my website, you can see those 10 things that we kind of talked through. You see a little bit about me and some of the legislation that we've carried that perhaps we didn't talk about. You'll find a place to donate. This is a grassroots thing, and I think that's important. I think it's important for the people to take this back, for the people to fund it. I haven't taken PAC money as a state rep. I'm not going to take foreign influence money, period. As a matter of fact, in Monty Fritts' opinion, those globalist entities, the Bill Gates of the world, they're not even welcome in Tennessee, and they're not welcome in the Capitol with me, because those are the same people that want to spray our skies with solar radiation management materials. They want to sell us fake meat. They want to force us to take vaccines. They want to give us digital ID, and they want to put a chip in our hand to prepare us for the mark of the beast. And so as far as I'm concerned, they can stay in whatever hole they live in now, stay out of Tennessee.
Well said.
Well, Representative Fritts, thank you so much for your time tonight. We really do appreciate it. And I'll speak for myself here. I think Sam feels the same way. I'd love to have you back on again sometime. We'd love to talk more. But this has been really great. And it's been really great to meet you tonight.
It's great to meet you, sir. I'd like to have the link when you all get it ready to go, and we'll help promote it.
Absolutely.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank y'all.
Okay. We're still here.
We're still here.
We are still here right now.
I swear, every time, I know he's on campaign go, but I learned so much every time, dude.
Okay, you said you want to keep the stream going and talk about this for a minute, or what?
Yeah, you could recap a little bit, what were your takeaways, if you had any more questions. While we're putting that together, if anyone else has more questions or comments, I think we could get to those. I know they started to roll in a little late, and I don't want to leave them hanging.
Mm-hmm.
I will say he is like a machine. He is all over the state all the time. He just left something, got on this. He'll be in Germantown tomorrow for a TNCSS, Tennessee Coalition for State Sovereignty, I believe it is, down there near Memphis in Germantown. He'll be there. That's going to be a good event.
Man. At first, I thought you meant the Nashville Germantown. I was like, man, I'm going to go over there and see what's going on, but no, that's too far.
But yeah, it is
my
quite
bad.
far. That's why I'm here. I let Josiah go over there. He's going to go do that. But our very own Zach Tatum is actually going to introduce Mr. Fritz. So that'll
Awesome.
be good. And then Freedom Fest. I don't know if you guys are heading over there. You guys doing that in Loudoun County, I think it is?
I don't even know what that is. So,
So no.
no. So
Okay.
no is the answer to that. When is Freedom Fest?
That is Saturday, October 4th from 12 to 8. We
Okay.
have the Mises Caucus and LPTN has a table there. Come on by.
Okay, Freedom Fest, October 4th. Okay.
Monty's going to
I'm
be
not-
there too, because like I said, he's like,
Well, I got a studio here in town that he needs to come and do an interview in sometime. I'll see if I can get him on for that. But no, I just want to say, and I hate to make comparisons to other people, but the way he talks about the Constitution and everything, he gives me Thomas Massey vibes a lot with like the strict adherence to the words of the state Constitution. And so that's really good. Like maybe some people might agree or disagree with some of those things, but hey, if we could just strictly adhere to the Constitution, that sounds like a pretty good thing to me. I think that's a pretty good starting point, you know.
the major improvement based on
Yeah.
I agree with the Massey vibes for sure. It's how, like you said, how he answers the questions. He always references that first instead of well, I'm a conservative and I believe this. No, tell me why. Like tell me where it comes from.
Yeah, I'm going over my notes here that I was making. I'm looking to see what's everyone who's watching right now, what do they think about that? We got amazing, great job.
Couple sound bites.
Yeah,
Oh.
I'm gonna see if I can work on some of that stuff. Now, I haven't been helping out enough. I haven't been helping Aaron out enough, and I need to be taking these videos and making some clips out of them. But so I'm gonna do my part.
John Black said, as of right now, I believe Tennessee's budget is dependent on the federal government by 40% of funding. What steps would you take as governor to reduce our volunteer states' dependence on Washington? That's a great one.
Yeah, I didn't see that.
Yeah. John, I think he mentioned he might be coming to Freedom Fest as well. He's actually part of our Mises group. And I mean, I would love to hear that answered as well. So maybe we can ask Monty there. That'd be great.
Yeah. You know what's crazy is he mentioned being a real lack of veterans in the legislature, elected officials, and I guess it would make him the only veteran running for governor, right? I don't know who the third person is. I don't know anything about them.
Johnny Rose.
Yeah, I don't know who that is. So,
Yeah,
okay. It's interesting to me that he would both be the only veteran and the only one that supports Defend the Guard at the same time. Like there's a connection there, and that's really cool to me that someone who's actually served and been over there and been in the Guard would be the one who supports Defend the Guard. And that's a connection for
how
sure.
that works, isn't it?
Yeah.
And that's just more to our fight for the bill here. We have obviously the legislation created with Dan McKnight, veteran, Monty Fritts supports it, veteran. All of our strongest testimony during the hearing was from veterans, and it's just more. Okay, so we've proven that none of the bad things you say will happen if we pass it. We've proven that veterans back this almost the better part of 90% across the U.S. Why don't you want it? Answer that question. That's the level I'm at. I'm sick of being like, well, this, and this part of the Constitution. Like, who are you friends with at Lockheed Martin? Can we ask the important questions?
It's money. Money is the answer.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
But this will be big. This is good progress. I really enjoyed hearing what he had to say.
Yeah, me too. So I guess we could, do we end it now? Do I just hit a button? I just end the stream?
Your device will detonate in 15 minutes.
Thank you so much to everyone who listened to this episode 150 of Decentralized Revolution. Aaron normally takes care of all of the important business like introing and outroing and saying websites and things like that. And so just refer back to another episode where he did those things because I'm not going to do it like he would. I'm not going to try because he does such a great job. And Sam, I appreciate you so much being here tonight. It was really fun.
That was
And
fun. Thanks for letting me work with you, bud.
anytime. All right, I'm going to hit the button. Thanks so much, everyone.